There we go. Well, it's a very big welcome to you all wherever you are listening to our webinar. Perhaps you're listening to it live here with us on Friday, or perhaps you're listening to it on your favorite streaming service. My name is Natalie Ashdown from the Open Door Coaching Group, and welcome to our end of year wrap up for 2023. And welcome to you all who are listening, and welcome to you, Paula. Great to see you and great to have you join us for our final Coaching Cafe of the year.
Hi, everyone.
So before we begin, we wanted to acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians on the lands on which we're all meeting today, and their continuing connection to the land, the waters and communities of Australia, and the lands from all around the world from where you might be joining us. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and elders from Indigenous countries from around the world. And wow, haven't we had a lot of people dialing in from all around the world this year? I think this year in particular, we've really expanded the number of people who are dialing in from different countries: Bali, Singapore, Indonesia, Canada, Vancouver, all over the world. It's been really wonderful. So our agenda for today, we're going to recap 2023, and we are reviewing the trends in coaching for 2023. And so back at the beginning of the year, could you believe it? Back in February, on the 17th of February, we ran our first Coaching Cafe, and we said, this is what we think is going to be important for us to think about in coaching for 2023. So we want to review those trends with you today, and we're very keen that you jump into the chat box, share your comments and your thoughts with us about what you have found. And in particular, how did we take a coaching approach to the trends that we were seeing? So that's the purpose of our conversation, to reflect on what we thought might happen in coaching, and then how did we actually take a coaching approach to those trends? As always, we were about this year, in particular, as we have been every year, we've been about creating that community, sharing our learned experience, and we've had thousands of people come on the line or listen to us on their favorite streaming service, and really creating that shared learning experience, which we are so grateful for. This is part of our development as much as part of your development. And we have been having very thought-provoking conversations throughout the year. We've had 7 different guest speakers come on the line, very experienced leaders in their fields sharing their thoughts. So we were able to have really thought-provoking conversations around these trends. And of course, for those of you that collected your CCUs at the end of each session, you would have a lot of CCUs stored safely somewhere, so that when you need to actually do your renewal, you have them safely tucked away. And I'm very pleased to let you know that just today, my MCC has been renewed for another 3 years. So this is part of my growth and development that I use to renew my MCC credential. Thank you very much. A few champagne buckets flying around there. A few happy faces. Yeah, so it's really great. Like, what we set out to achieve for you, we actually achieve for ourselves, and it's been an absolute privilege. So, Paula, let's take a look at these trends. Let's think about what we said back in February we thought might be on the agenda for coaching this year, and let's see how we responded. I never really look at these trends. I might look at them once or twice during the year, but then it's always really fascinating to look back on them at the end of the year. So the first trend we identified was inflation in Australia, and the rising cost of living and the rising interest rates, and we talked about back in February, the stress about cost of living and what that was going to impact that was going to have, not only on people in their homes, but also people from a workplace point of view. And we were concerned back in February about the impact on the work environment, and that we were looking after people if they were experiencing pressures at home, that we're looking after them in the work environment as well. And of course, in our media all throughout this year, rising interest rates, cost of living, etc., inflation has been a real focus. And I saw, more interestingly, the media talking about, oh, it's now the older generation that's putting the burden on the younger generation. I feel like the media took every single angle on this that was possible. And what I'm interested in, though, is how did we actually respond? And so we responded in our coaching cafes with compassion, with listening in our coaching, with helping people around planning, and of course suggested where it might be appropriate to make a referral to a financial counsellor as well. And we were saying in response to this trend that there's a lot we can do in coaching to look after people, and where it was appropriate to make that referral from a mental health point of view or make a referral to a financial counsellor. Paula, what are you thinking in terms of how we approached the year with this trend?
Yeah, I think what you've said is absolutely correct. And with the mental health first aid training that we've been delivering in organisations and with individuals, this topic actually has come up numerous times. And that whole idea that you're a whole person when you go to work, and if something's not working right outside of work, that it impacts on it within work, has really connected in with people to say, well, so if I'm at work and there's something not quite right, maybe it's not just work. And so we've done lots of work with people around making sure that they're looking after their teams from a mental health perspective and individuals. So, looking for differences, trying to assist someone to support them to who's the next person that they need to speak to, whether that be a financial counsellor or a GP, or a mental health professional, but really taking that idea that, this is really having an impact on people. And the best thing we can do as a coach is to ask people what they're doing for themselves. How are you looking after yourself? What do you need to do in order to feel better?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's having impact on businesses as well. So a lot of people we've talked to, they're talking about businesses have been down 20, 30, 40% this year as well. Learning and development budgets have been cut by those amounts as well, 30, 40, 50%. So I feel like this year we've done really well as a coaching community to continue coaching, to continue to make a difference despite what I call the external environment having a large impact on a lot of things, not only at home, but at work and on budgets, and also on what we're trying to achieve in terms of building a culture of coaching within organizations or building our coaching bandwidth within organizations as well. So I think it's I think our response to continuing to coach, continuing to make a difference despite these external factors that are impacting is really huge. And thank you. Oh yes. So Robin's saying, yeah, the Coaching Cafe today, as the information, it's still really relevant. So what was started out in February, it's still very relevant, very prevalent. And Georgia says, so true, coaching's needed and it's even more important now. Yeah, I agree with you. So the second trend we identified was back in 2022, these statistics were coming out in the HR magazines, in particular around burnout and the concern that 66% of Australian managers were reporting burnout. 62% of Australian employees were experiencing burnout, compared to a global average of only 40, well, not only, but 48%. So our Australian work statistics were much higher than the global average. 66% of managers reporting burnout in Australia, as opposed to 53% globally. And the trend back there was suggesting that Australian workers were suffering a higher level of burnout compared to anywhere else in the world. So from a trend point of view, this was a real concern, because we know as coaches there's a lot we can do in this area to support people, just as we were talking about in our previous trend. But it was worth calling out as a specific trend. And how we responded, I'm really proud of how we responded as an alumni. We did a series of webinars on, it's got health in the workplace, on mental health in the workplace, having conversations around mental health. And it's been a privilege, actually, Paula, because you've led those conversations, and a couple of our key speakers and guests led those conversations as well. And we talked about this feeling of juggling, continually having to juggle our health and well-being. And we also talked about the barriers to health and well-being conversations and mental health conversations. In particular, we had a very robust conversation around those barriers where people were saying, it's not my role, I don't know how to handle these conversations. And so, by the way, all of these webinars and blogs are available on our website. So if you missed any of these webinars, you can pick them up again. But I feel really proud how we as an alumni have actually really taken this on as a challenge to have more conversations, to use our coaching skills in these conversations. And we've got champions who I can see there, like Ian Scott's on the line, Andrew Figtree came on the line and talked to us. We had a number of different people come and talk to us about these conversations. Paula, what do you think about this trend?
Yeah, I really love this quote from Glenn Close, because I, even in my mental health workshops, I say, and even when I'm delivering programs that are a longer period of time via Zoom, I say, please go outside and find sunshine, because there's something really beautiful about the sun on your face. Unfortunately for all the Melbourne people, that isn't always possible.
Correct.
And I love the term unashamed conversation. And I, you know, from our perspective and the work that we do, it is about, let's just talk about it, like it, and make sure that everyone's having the conversation. And if you notice something from your people, then have the conversation, because you'd rather have the conversation than not. Because if you have the conversation, we know that it leads to better outcomes for people. And if you just don't have the conversation, if we're not talking about it, it means that it still stays hidden, and people think they can't talk about it. So I love this idea of the unashamed conversation. And I think that we have spent a lot of time this year really helping leaders, coaches, HR professionals think about, how do we think about our people in the workplace from this mental health perspective? What can we do differently that we haven't been doing before that will make an impact to people in the workplace, knowing that there's lots of pressures going on? I've spoken to lots of HR people around, we have EAP services that 1% of your organisation are actually accessing. You know, maybe if you're getting 5% uptake, it's considered really good. I think that should be closer to 30, 40%. If you've got 30 to 40% of your employees connecting in, how great would that be? So how do we talk differently about the EAP program? How do we talk about seeking assistance early? How do we change the conversation that we're having so that it has a really big impact?
Yes, absolutely. And the quote that Paula's referring to is the one that we have on the screen. So for those of you that are listening, Glenn Close shared a lot and is an advocate for mental health. And she said, what mental health needs is more sunlight, more candor, more unashamed conversation. And I agree with you, where there's not sunlight, it could be air on your face or whatever it is that gives you joy. And that's what we're talking about, the concerts or music or whatever it is, and how we can, you know, we were having this conversation about how at work we can present as fully functional and professional and fired up, etc. However, what's happening on inside is actually could be very different. So it's spending the time and taking the time, and coaching, we have that great opportunity to do that. So it's a real privilege to be able to have those conversations. So yes, needed this year, and will continue to be needed as we go along. With the third trend, oh, I beg your pardon, let's just jump forward. With the third trend, we were talking about remote workplaces, the hybrid working, and there was a lot of research at the beginning of the year around people coming back to the workplace, that people were suffering from a technology point of view, and the quote there is around, for those that can't see it, we put a couple of quotes up, and it said, people are suffering from too much technology, work never stops, and employees feel they're constantly on. There's currently a lot of noise in the system, constraining productivity and forcing people to work longer hours to make up for it. And that was from the Partner of Workplace Relations and Advisory, People Change at KPMG Australia. So Gallup also did a lot of work in looking at the trends around the hybrid workplace, and talked about that people might be struggling with feeling connected to the purpose of the organisation and its culture. and they may not be clear about the expectation or the meaning of work. Now, this was a very interesting trend, and we saw it really play out in the workplace this year, with organisations starting to demand actually that people come back to the workplace. And we saw our first major court case, I suppose, here in Australia about at Fair Work Australia, people being told that they need to come back to the workplace. So I think it's been like an underlying pressure and stress on people to work out what it means to be working in a hybrid. And I still don't think we've actually sorted it out. But what I do know is our approach to it from a coaching point of view. There's Albert Einstein. The quote is, "I fear the day that coaching will surpass our human interaction. The world will have a generation of idiots." So what we did in terms of the coaching approach was talking a lot this year about how we help people coach through change. And also we did a series of webinars on getting the mindset right for performance conversations. We did a lot of talking about how do we create that human connection? How do we create that environment that people want to come back to? And there's a lot of coaching we can do around that. And we did spend time this year talking about culture and what does it mean to build a new culture? Because we can't go back to the old culture. We find this new way of interacting, this new culture. And there's a lot of discussion throughout the year about if we just build the right culture, people will come. You know, we put on the pizza days or the muffin days and people will come. And it's so much more of that. More than that. We had a lot of great discussions about what does it actually mean to build the culture within our organizations that incorporates a hybrid workplace. And of course, a lot of those thoughts are covered in our coaching culture and in our diploma program. But there's a lot that we can do here in coaching. Paula, any thoughts that you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I think this one is in the conversations I've been having really comes down to what's the purpose. So if you're bringing people together into the workplace, how are you making the most of that connection whilst you have them? How are you really thinking about what's the reason for them to come in, and then what, as opposed to working from home? And I think there's a lot of work being done in this space too around that culture that says, how do we find out more about our people and how they work and what their strengths are, and then better utilize them, as opposed to it just being you have to be in the office 2 days a week? How do we really maximize this hybrid environment, and really leverage people's strengths in that space as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Leveraging and creating those human connections. And yeah, we've got a lot of support there. Paula, on the chat, Georgia says, thinking about how people feel in the workplace and are they feeling valued and supported, be it in the hybrid environment, like at home when they're working from home, or when they come into the office as well. So how are they feeling valued and supported is a great point. And Lisa has jumped in, and it's been wonderful to have Lisa as a guest speaker this year as well, saying actively and loudly sharing the purpose of connecting in whichever form it is. So we've got lots more work to do here as an alumni of coaches, as an alumni of leaders, as managers, and as influencers in our workplaces, to continue to build that human connection, continue to make sure people feel valued, and you know, we are about maximizing performance and productivity as well. So how do we enable that? And I think we haven't seen the last of this trend. Of course, we haven't worked out what the trends for 2024 are going to be yet, but I think we're going to be revisiting this for quite some time further. And thank you for everyone who's jumping in. Please feel free to jump in. Ian says, it's hard to get to know your people on technology. It is, it really is. He said, face to face, you can ask about what's going on in life in a much more sincere way. And I agree with you. Even if you're not, you know, the extrovert, it's still that face to face connection that you can actually do more and see more than if we're just on technology. We did a coaching program, our Cert 4 program last week. I was interstate for the week, and we actually forced people just to coach on the phone or coach over the web. And then we just previously they had been coaching face to face, and so then we talked about the differences. What difference does it make when you're coaching on the phone? You are honing other skills, but you've got a lot more information when you can see the person face to face and connect and feel that energy, etc. So there's advantages both ways, and it's about working out how is it that we can create that connection in whatever format that we're working in. Thank you. So we were talking about trend number 4, and here the trend at the start of the year was about talent attraction and retention. And the reason we brought this trend into it was because of this massive survey that came out of the HR magazines as well. And they were talking about 78% of respondents, so 1,300 employees surveyed, and they said that 78% of respondents reported a higher turnover rate in the previous 12 months. And 61% of employees expected this to continue or to get worse in the year to come. So back in 2022, we looked at 2023 and we thought, well, 78% of the people are saying that there's going to be a higher turnover. 61% expected it to continue or to get worse. We need to respond to this in terms of coaching, working with our talent, attracting and retaining. What can we do here? And as a matter of fact, Open Doors did a lot of work in this area with the high potentials talent groups as well, in one-on-one coaching and also in leadership and development programs. So we did see this play out a bit. But interestingly, rather than go after talent retraction and retention, we were diverted, I think, mid-year, kind of in the fourth quarter. We were diverted from this trend to something that I think is even more important, and that was the trend around quiet quitting. So Gallup released the State of the Global Workforce report, and it diverted our attention, I think, in a positive way, because we then diverted our attention to focusing on building engagement. So the solution to talent attraction and retention is also seen in how do we build engagement. So how do we keep our talented people engaged and learning? And the reasons why people were quiet quitting were actually the reasons that we could actually do more in this space. So we did do a series on building engagement, and I was really learning so much about from our guest speakers. We had Lisa Bowness come on, talk about our duty of care and what that meant in terms of building engagement. We had Andrew Figtree, former group captain at Air Force, come and talk to us about building engagement. So the reasons why people are quiet quitting: lack of learning, repetitive work, managers being unapproachable, lack of respect, values misalignment, lack of recognition, lack of clear goals, stronger guidance. All of these reasons why people are quiet quitting, we can approach it with a coaching approach. And so that's what we took. And in doing that, we are also then covering that topic of talent and retention as well. Paula, it was quite a big focus of us. I felt like we were taking up the cause as an alumni to really focus on building engagement and overcome these reasons for quiet quitting. What did you think throughout that series?
Yeah, I agree. And if you are if you're in L&D or org development or HR or a manager or a coach, taking all of these and turning to them. So what can we do? So what could we do differently around lack of recognition for contribution? How can we recognize people? How can we all be more approachable? It's such a positive way of looking at so the quiet quitting sort of sits below that line. And it's almost like we looked at it and said, how do we reframe this above the line? Yeah. And then approach it? And I think it's going to be really important moving forward that it's the what do we now, how do we change this? And it links in with culture as well, but what are we doing in each of these areas to reduce the quiet quitting? Because as you're reducing the quiet quitting, your engagement is rising.
Yeah, absolutely. And the big reframes that we have, exactly like you said, we spent quite a bit of time going, well, if there's lack of recognition for contribution, what needs to be recognized? How does the person, so the what, how, who, when, where questions for reframing became really important here. And with when the statistics came out, the 68% of our workforce in Australia and New Zealand are quiet quitting. 13% had already checked out, so actively quitting. And quiet quitting was about people sitting in the seat doing the minimum effort, not really bringing their energy or their engagement at all to their workplace. And it kind of makes me sad because this is where we spend all our time. And at the same time, I feel really energized with the coaching alumni that we have for us to really go after this. So I think it's a massive trend this year that we saw, and I think it's a trend that's going to continue. I think there's never been a better time for coaching, never been a better time for coaching for us to, as an alumni, as a collective, to start to turn this engagement around. And so it's very worthy of future conversations as we go along. So there you go. That is our end of year wrap up. We looked at the four major trends that we said we might see at the beginning of the year and how we responded as a coaching alumni. In amongst that, we actually had our 20th birthday celebrations, which was just an amazing time. It was a beautiful, reflective time for all of us to think about, wow, where did we start out 20 years ago in coaching, and look at where we are now and look at the conversations that we're enabling. So it was a lovely, reflective time, and we were able to interview Bridget, and we were able to interview different people that have been part of this extended journey for Open Door. We delivered over 30 podcasts, including some podcasts for other guest speakers. We had 7 wonderful guest speakers come on the line to talk about specific topics. Not only that, we know there's thousands of people that actually listen to us on the streaming services, which is just amazing. People are always emailing and texting me saying, I've caught up on the last three podcasts. So we want to really thank those people who haven't come to us live but have been listening on your favorite streaming service. So thank you. Paula, I want to thank you for engaging and stretching us and growing us and developing us every week. If we just sat down and wrote out all your coaching questions that you ask us every week, that would be an enormous bank of quality questions which we can use to grow and develop. So thank you very much for your contribution. And I want to thank everyone who's come to on the line every Friday. We love this Coaching Cafe. We've been doing it for 8 years now, 7 or 8 years, and it's part of our growth and development. It's part of how we connect as an alumni. So thank you to you all as well. Paula, final words from you?
Oh, mate, I am just super excited to come on every time I can, because we always talk about my favorite topics. So I've thoroughly enjoyed being able to talk about them and hearing from our alumni. And I agree, it's such a great opportunity to grow and develop and hear different things and connect in different ways. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. We wish you a very happy holiday season, a very Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. That is it for our 2023 wrap-up. We look forward to bringing you the 2024 season. We've got no idea what it'll be. We'll have a look at that in the new year. And we really hope that you have a really refreshing and energizing break, that you have time for yourself and for your family, that you have time to really focus on what brings you joy, and that we can really decompress and reinvigorate for the new year, because we know for many people it's been a really tough year. So all the best, everyone. Thank you for your contribution this year, and we will say goodbye for now and enjoy your coaching. Thank you, everyone.